A little bit less than a half hour, we're going to talk to him. How you feeling right now? Deebo or DeeNO?
I'm feeling more like DeeNO. DeeNO as in he's not going to be traded.
Oh.
I didn't know which way you meant that. Like Deebo, I think he's still going to be a 49er.
You do?
Yeah, it's feeling more and more as the reports are trickling in about what team's over the cap and what team has had conversations but not really pulled the trigger. We are now just 10 minutes away from the first pick in the second round being put on the clock, and I think we're quickly running out of time as we get into the second round. I think if the Niners are going to make a move, it'll be early in that second round, and I'm looking at maybe Washington as one of the possible early targets. Adam Peters now in Washington probably loves Deebo and Brandon Ayuk. I think Brandon's off the table. Washington is picking 4th in the second round and 8th. So if you get past those spots, you've got the Chargers, a team that's been rumored to maybe be interested in Deebo. The Patriots, although reports now of late have been that they are less interested. Maybe they made an offer or didn't make an offer. So Buffalo, New England, Washington, the Chargers, and then Washington again. Once you get past pick 40, I think it's a done deal.
I tell you one thing that is on my mind right now, and I don't know if this is just the history of me watching the league, but everyone's focused on Buffalo because they're the first. They're on the clock, right? Here shortly. You mentioned this. We've been talking about it. Maybe that actually doesn't really fit financially for the Buffalo Bills. But the very next pick is the New England Patriots. This is a receiver-starved team. Seemingly, they always are. They did this for a long time with Tom Brady and turn and burn, and I know Randy Moss had some amazing years there, but there's something about, and I know Bill Belichick's not even the coach anymore, but it is off of the Belichick and Patriots tree where they have found their new coaching staff, and they will go forward as such. They just drafted another very early first-round quarterback. They're going to want to make life easy for him. And if you look at the history of that organization, you've had a lot of wide receivers that do what? They like to do a lot of action close to the line of scrimmage and out of the slot and get creative. Think of the Wes Welkers and the Julian Edelmans who have been through there. It just feels, this is just my mind's eye, it feels like a place that would love Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually a little bit more, and this is not for nothing. This is not a report, but I feel like it's more likely that something could happen with the Patriots and the next pick in the draft as opposed to the Bills and the first pick in the draft today.
Yeah, and I think the Field Yates report about the Bills being over the cap, too far over to accommodate Deebo, and I also think that the Brandon Ayuk portion of the trade talk around the Niners is over, so Deebo would make sense to Buffalo. It would definitely make sense to New England the way you laid it out. And you think about snowy Buffalo and or cold Gillette Stadium.
Yeah.
These are places where you want a rough and tumble receiver, and that's absolutely what Deebo is when healthy. And, you know, you're talking about the 33rd pick for Buffalo, the 34th pick for New England. That's the sort of compensation you'd be looking for. You know, if you get the 34th pick from New England and their 4th round, or maybe it's you swap your 4th for their 5th, or I don't know what else the compensation would be. It feels like it's more than just one pick for Deebo.
I agree. I think it would be maybe a pick and maybe a move down. John Lynch spoke recently with regard to, because of NIL and therefore more college players are opting to stay in college longer because they can still take care of things financially by being there. And I think, Randy, was it you and I that were talking about this? The idea that late round picks, it's kind of ironic that this is coming from the 49ers, being that their soon-to-be $50 million quarterback came out of the 7th round.
Right.
But the point he was making was players like draft picks in the 6th and 7th round are not as valuable as they used to be, because a lot of those players that you used to be able to find in there, they just go back to school. So you're dealing with a little bit more of a watered-down group. So the 49ers, who have a healthy amount of late-round picks, maybe they would be incentivized to move down a little bit from one of those pick spots, because what they really feel is the value slot is what starts now, and it's like 2 through 4, 5-ish, where you can really make your hay in a draft.
I get that part of it, but the other piece for me is that this Niner team does not have a lot of open spots. So for me, it's not about getting additional picks. It's about getting better picks. And I think if you look at 10 draft picks in total, you're not going to get 10 rookies to make this team. So for me, it's about taking the draft assets you have and combining them, if you combine them with Deebo, to move up. So maybe you wind up getting New England's pick at 34, and then you take one of your, maybe a couple of your 6th-round picks, to your point. New England, a team that's going to need more players because their roster's not as deep. Maybe you end up taking a couple of your later picks and package them with Deebo, and you get the 34th pick and New England's 3rd, for example.
Bunch of different ways this can go.
Right.
But I think that I agree with you. Those are the kinds of things that make sense. Instead of letting me try to explain to you what John Lynch said, we have a better idea. Mark Grandy even whispered in my ear, I have a better idea. Instead of you describing it, why don't you just let them hear what John Lynch said?
We put a grade on players in the fall if we think there's a chance they're going to be a more than 50% chance that they're going to be in this draft. So 83 players from this year's class that we put grades on. So thinking there's more than a 50% chance, thinking they're entering the draft, are back in college because of NIL and things like that. There's now a different route these kids can take. Some is, 35 of those with starter grades. So that's a significant amount. And how that affects this draft, it's going to be interesting. I think the later rounds probably going to be lacking, so it's a new dynamic, that one that I imagine we're going to be faced with each year. I mean, you can go back and make $1 million. I don't know if that's the going rate, but it is providing competition, and that's a significant amount of players.
All right, so he said it right there. The late round picks are going to be like, and the Niners, 3 of their remaining 9 picks are in rounds 6 and 7.
Yep.
And I don't know if he was talking about round 5 also. I don't know, but they have a round 5 comp pick, which means it's late. It's a late round 5 pick. So they got 4 of their remaining 9 picks might sort of qualify in the group that he was just talking about right there.
Right. You got 2 4ths, a 5th, 2 6th, and a 7th. And again, I don't think that 10 of these rookies are going to make your team, especially the way he's laying it out. If the draft is automatically going to be bottom week, because, if you get taken in that spot, you can opt to go back to college and you don't have to worry about it and go make probably more money and maybe try your luck again next year in the NFL draft. That would tell me that maybe you want to move off of a couple of these 6th and 7th round picks.
Yep. So I do think today, I don't know if Deebo Samuel is going to be gone today, but I do think today is going to be a little moving and shaking for the 49ers. It just feels like that's what's in their sphere right now. 9 more picks. Do they gather up some more picks, or do they try to sort of incentivize the picks that they do have, move up a little bit? We all know the needs. And I am not concerned in the slightest that the 49ers did not address cornerback or offensive line yet. It's been 1 pick. You have to do this based on value. Listen, as much as I would love it if somebody named Kool-Aid McKinstry is on the 49ers. I mean, I don't even care if he's any good. Give me Kool-Aid McKinstry. He is one of the top players on the board right now. He's a cornerback. I'll give you an example of something I could see happening. Let's see who the Bills pick. They might go with McConkey. They've traded down twice already. They've built up some draft capital, and they obviously need wide receivers, and they need cheap ones. So instead of thinking, could the Bills try to trade for T. Higgins or Deebo Samuel right now, I think they take a rookie wide receiver. Could Deebo Samuel be on his way to the Patriots so that the 49ers can rock the Kool-Aid at pick number 34? I could see that happening here in the next 20 minutes.
Yes, absolutely. You could see Buffalo taking A.D. Mitchell out of Texas, who is still on the board. And, many mocks had him going in the first round, and he might be the best available. He or Ladd McConkey could be that receiver. And if Buffalo is a team up against the cap and they do need a receiver, it makes more sense to draft one of these guys in the second round and go ahead and give them a try, as opposed to trading the asset and try to bring in the big money. And again, if it does get by that spot, I think that's where you start to get into a little bit of a tough spot where if it gets past Washington twice, then maybe the whole idea of a trade becomes dead.
Boy, I almost feel a little bit nervous. Let's take a breath and remind everybody that you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, an Odyssey sports station. Always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Upgrade your savings dividend. Open a First NorCal first-class money market today. There are two reasons, and again, what I've stated all day. I really hope that the 49ers do not trade Deebo now. If you need to move off of him, do it next March, but I fear that they will. There are two things that are very businessy, which is not the fun part of this. None of us like it. But there's two things that are very businessy that are bouncing around in my head today with regard to this whole thing. Number one, and I've stated it a couple of times, so just a quick summary. I feel like with Christian McCaffrey's presence, the need for Deebo to run the ball has lessened, and the 49ers may well have reached a point where they're like, look, we love Deebo, but we're overpaying. He is being paid like a wide receiver one. He is not. And he is being paid like a number one option, Swiss Army knife, and he is not.
Right.
I would argue that as much as this may sound weird, Deebo Samuel is option 3 in this offense. McCaffrey 1. I think Ayuk is 2. And Deebo is 3.
I mean, he might be 4.
He might be 4.
Kittle had more catches than he did. He had more targets than he did.
I don't want to upset anybody with like what feels like a political statement, but I could see the Niners' point if they're sitting in a room going, we love Deebo, but he's overpaid.
Right.
So that's business part number 1. Business part number 2 is I'm so struck by the fact that the 49ers have clearly been making and taking calls about their wide receiver room for a matter of weeks. And they went into this draft, and instead of deciding we got to move off of Brandon, we're not going to sign him, or we got to move off of Deebo because he's a battering ram and getting older, instead of saying that, they went, either. We're open to moving on from either.
Or neither.
Maybe.
That's the part I think that is the most interesting.
Well, that's the leverage they have.
Right.
The leverage they have when they call these teams is we can walk away.
Right.
We can just play with Deebo and Brandon.
And you've been saying
year.
it all week that you got to have a stomach for this stuff.
Yep.
And not only for the free agency and the game of chicken that you're going to be playing with Brandon Ayuk between now and the opener in September when the schedule comes out. We'll know exactly who and where that game is. But you got to have the stomach for this as well. And Kyle and John clearly do because they got offers for Brandon Ayuk and they didn't panic. They didn't do something that they weren't comfortable doing. And if the offer that they got came from whatever team and the compensation was not what they wanted, they simply said no. And then they went out and drafted a receiver anyway because they liked the receiver. He was high on their board. And, you know, like you said, go ahead and find a can and kick it down the road. And if you have to keep all 3 guys, you can. And your team would probably be better than if you wound up trading Deebo Samuel. Is Buffalo on the clock? Not quite.
Not yet.
Almost.
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, broadcast has started, but they're just panning out to show all of the crazy human beings who have gathered for this draft.
For day 2.
Who apparently, I don't even think they went home. I don't think they went home. They've been there the whole time. Look at all these people.
The estimated crowd yesterday was 250,000. 250,000.
The NFL draft has turned into visually what looks like old History Channel footage of dictators speaking. You know, and they're like on this like elevated platform, and there's just all like a sea of people sitting here listening to somebody speak. It is unbelievable what has happened to this event.
Yeah.
And look, I get it. It's a ton of fun, and it's like we talk about a lot. There's very little left in American content where it's not sort of canned. You don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And you need to watch it live.
And it's unifying,
Mark.
There's
very little of that.
This is not like, you know, Democratic candidate or Republican candidate. This is the National Football League. And even if your team is not drafting, whoever comes up here at 33 to Buffalo, every single person in that crowd of 250,000 is going to have an opinion. Either I like the player, I like the pick, or that was a reach, or he's a bum and that was terrible, they blew it. The draft is a unifying experience of humanity. It reminds me of being in Vatican City to see the Pope with 500,000 other people for Palm Sunday Mass. Everybody's there to see the one dude, and he's up there, Dominus Ominous, and he's doing all his thing. And, he's blessing the people, and he's serving the wafers and the whole deal. It's like everybody there was unified for the one purpose, and that's kind of what the draft is.
Yeah, it has become that, certainly. You get a fan base together, and everybody gathers around, and and we talked about this earlier in the week. It does strike me as funny, because the payoff doesn't seem like what you would want it to be to do what you do. Like, there are people that gather. You've got, how many Lions fans? But every team seemed to have a contingent of people who painted their faces, got all of their friends and family members. They got XXL jerseys. They got stains on them. They're drunk. They're eating everything you're not supposed to eat. And they all gather around. And then what is it you're waiting for? Roger Goodell's like, so here's a name. And like, okay, what happens now?
Right.
Like, you
wait for another name. I was just thinking about you and your experience. What if you went to a Pearl Jam concert, outdoor venue, 100,000 people, and Eddie Vedder comes out and the crowd goes wild, and he just simply, he walks up and he goes, even flow. And he walks away.
Right.
He just announces the name of the song.
All he says is, I'm excited to be here.
Even
and then
flow.
he leaves.
And he reads the name of a song that they would perform, but they're not going to perform it because that would be like an NFL game. So you go to a concert and they don't play the song. They just tell you the song that they would play, just like, they're announcing Caleb Williams and the crowd goes wild. Guess what? In 5 months, you get to see him play football.
Oh, my God.
But in the meantime, New England's on the clock.
Yep.
It's just hilarious.
It is. Well, and Roger Goodell in a brand new suit. So he went home. That's good to know. He's back in a different suit. It appears his back has survived the day yesterday, and he is addressing the crowd right now. So we're about to be open for business in round number 2. And today feels different than yesterday in that there are a number of reporters on both sides of the fence here. For some reason, and this is just in my view, you tell me if you see it different, the arc of things since the 49ers got Ricky Pearsall. We went to bed last night, and it very much felt like the 49ers were going to trade Deebo Samuel by 5 o'clock today. Something happened throughout the day that made people feel like it was less likely, even though I have no idea what it was that happened. What happened? There's no report that says it's now unlikely.
Well, here's Michael Silver from just a few moments ago and from the SF Chronicle regarding a potential Deebo Samuel trade. Right now, there does not appear to be a team that would meet the 49ers asking price tonight. That could obviously change. All it takes is one team, but at this moment, it's quiet.
That's beautiful.
It's quiet.
That's beautiful.
That's from 7 minutes ago, Michael Silver, regarding a potential Deebo Samuel trade. And as I've said, I do think if it happens tonight, it would happen before Washington's done with its second pick.
Soon. I don't know. I don't know. Well, at 40. Okay, so yeah.
They have 2 picks.
I agree with you that if it's going to happen, I think it's going to happen during our show.
Agreed.
That's what I would say.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
That's great.
Because Grandy, do not hit even the front end of it right now. But Grandy could hit the little button, the breaking news button.
And I'll tell you this.
It could happen
if it happens during Grandy and Sterling, I'm going to be mad at John Lynch.
Hell yeah.
You got to do this before 6.
Well,
don't throw Grandy the bone.
No, it's not even about the show. But like by 6 o'clock, they're going to be in the 3rd round, aren't they? In the 3rd round by then.
That would be late second.
We're not doing this without getting a 2nd rounder out of it.
What do you guys think Deebo's value is? The fact that there's a legit conversation about it being an early 2nd kind of blows my mind.
I think the 49ers stated, and again, this is all lying season, but the 49ers, the report went out yesterday that they would be seeking a 2nd and a 3rd. Second and eighth.
I'm still
I think I
thinking,
got news to them. I don't think they're going to get that.
Well, maybe that's why they're not trading these guys.
Well, if I can refer you to
They're
the
not-
Michael Silver tweet, he says it does not appear that a team would meet the Niners' asking price. And if that's their asking price, and Grady, you obviously think that that's too rich for Deebo Samuel, and maybe the other 31 teams agree with you. Because if the Niners are asking for a second and, let's even say it's a fourth or a fifth, a second and, or maybe it's a second and a swap in the fourth or
right,
something.
there could be compensation going back, more draft compensation. Like what if they got a 2 and a 4, but sent back a 5? Like so I could see that. Listen, I know the financial ramifications of all of this, but also Deebo freaking Samuel. Deebo Samuel. A very, very good football player who's under contract for 2 more seasons. I'm sure the Niners are like, we're not giving him away.
Right.
We don't have to do this right now.
And other teams who are looking for receivers are thinking the same thing. We don't have to do this right now because they can draft a rookie. And even though he may not be ready right away in week 1, Mark.
Or he may not be good at all.
Right. And Deebo
That's worth
Samuel
something.
may, all the abilities that Bucky Brooks was talking about, durability, reliability, dependability. These are things that Deebo has struggled with. So if you're another team, do you want to give up your second, your high second, and another pick to get a guy who might not play more than 10 games? It's risky.
Everything is.
Right.
The whole night is.
But you're better off, if I'm a GM, I would rather shoot my shot, it's all I got, with my pick, as opposed to giving up my